I've got a bunch of experiments around reverb that I'm going to do today that'll hopefully answer a whole bunch of questions that I have personally. I'm sure you've heard too much reverb ruins your tone, or reverb hides your mistakes. I mean, these are things we've heard over and over again, but are they even really true? That's what I want to find out today. I know this can be a very complex subject because tone is something that is so personal and very subjective. At the end of the day, it's all about what you like. That is really what matters, because any tone can be a great tone in the right context. What I personally want to know is simple. Fundamentally, does reverb mask or ruin your dry guitar tone? And also, does reverb sort of smudge over your mistakes, making it seem like you're a better player than what you really are? Personally, this isn't something that I believe in. Like, reverb and delay are probably my two favorite effects of all time, especially reverb. Like, I've found it to be a great tone enhancer more than a tone killer. What I find is if I make a mistake, you can still clearly hear the mistake. It just sounds like a mistake with reverb on. And if I'm using delay, well, you get to hear that mistake again. But in saying all this, do I just have a bias towards using what some would say too much reverb? Right, so let's get into these tests. Now, I'm not going to tell you what reverb we're using today because I think that's just going to open up a humongous can of worms. But hey, if you can guess what it is, chuck it down in the comments, and if you get it right, I'll let you know. For these first tests, what I want you to listen for is if the reverb degrades the fundamental tone. So it's definitely going to sound different with different levels of reverb, that's clear, but does it degrade or ruin or wreck the tone? There's no right or wrong here, it's just what you think. Okay, that was actually really interesting. I did not feel like it changed the tone in any fundamental way. I felt like it stayed basically the same all the way through. The actual fundamental tone was still intact and still the same. Okay, so for this next test, I'm going to be playing over 3 backing tracks that I created. Now, these are available for free for my Plus members over at my Fourth Wall site. If you haven't been over there, check it out. There's a free account there if you just want to go and check it out and see what it's all about. Now, the idea here is that I improvise over these tracks and then I go back through them and collect all the mistakes. And then I'm going to put different levels of reverb on them just to see if adding extra reverb is going to smudge over those mistakes so they become less obvious, I suppose. Now, it was the weirdest experience sitting there waiting for mistakes to pop out while you're improvising, but I got some real cracker ones, some kind of embarrassing ones, which I was stoked about. So I've got some really cool examples here to be able to see if this reverb is just going to smudge over them and make me sound a whole lot better than I was. That was actually pretty interesting. Let me know down in the comments what you thought. But for me, it was actually pretty obvious every time I made a mistake. It didn't matter how much reverb was on there, it wasn't going to cover up those mistakes, even those really little ones. And the other thing that I found really interesting was how less of an impact different levels of reverb had in the mix. Like even with that heavy reverb, in that mix, it wasn't as overbearing as when the guitar was just being played solo by itself, because I used the same levels of reverb as I did in those earlier tests for these improvisation pieces. And yeah, so that was actually quite a surprise to me. Reverb, for me, clearly doesn't hide mistakes. You're still going to hear every single mistake. It's really about for me anyway, it's about serving the song. I'm not going to drench my tone in reverb for every single song if it's not kind of needed. It's definitely about putting it in the right context, I think. I think it's safe to say we can all keep happily using reverb. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not something your average audience member is probably even going to care about, but what they are going to care about is if you're getting a tone that makes you feel great, it's going to absolutely translate in the music that you're playing, and that is definitely something worth thinking about.